everyone, and welcome back to the Manage Her, the podcast where we turn invisible work of women into powerful, intentional leadership. I'm your host, Aimee Rickabus, author of The Manage Her, entrepreneur, and mama of six. Today's episode is going to be a little racier than usual. And honestly, I'm here for it because managing our lives as women also means managing our bodies, our energy, and yes, our pleasure. My guest today is Dr. Holly Wood. And yes, that is her real name. Known online as the Hollywood Sexologist. She's a wife, mom of two young children, a 5-month-old and a 2-year-old, and she holds a PhD in human sexuality. Holly is passionate about helping women and couples understand intimacy through a lens of self awareness, education, and empowerment. Her work focuses on dismantling shame, normalizing pleasure, and helping women reconnect with their sensual selves, especially during the demanding seasons of motherhood and partnership. You can find her at thehollywoodsexologist.com or on Instagram at Dr. Hollywood PhD and on YouTube at the Hollywood Sexologist. And trust me, her content is refreshingly real. You're going to love it. So settle in. This conversation is about reclaiming one of the most important parts of being a woman, your connection to your body, your desire, and your truth. Welcome, Holly. Yay. It's so nice to have you on the show, honey. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so let's start with your name, Dr. Hollywood. That's
Yes.
unforgettable. How was having a
Yes.
name like that shape your brand or the way you approach
Um,
your work?
yeah. So I think at first, Holly was actually my middle name and is now my first name. Wood has always been my last name. That was my maiden name. And I think at first I was a little bit nervous about it coming off as unprofessional or kind of cheesy. But then part of me was like, well, I think it catches attention, and also my professionalism and my expertise will shine through beyond my name. So I kept it. And now that I'm married, I was kind enough to adopt a hyphen for my husband, but I do still practice with the last name Wood because I really like my name.
It's really cute and it definitely sticks with you. So you've got a PhD in human sexuality, but you're also a
Yes.
wife and a mom to 2 very young kids. What drew you into this field and how did you know it was your calling?
Yes, great question. So I started out in my undergraduate career going to college studying pre-med, and about halfway through I was just getting really burnt out by the amount of chemistry and stuff that wasn't really sparking my interest. And so I started taking gender and sexuality classes as a breadth requirement, and I was like, "Oh, I actually really like this stuff." So that combined with unfortunately my own experiences as a survivor of sexual violence throughout college, kind of propelled me to start volunteering at my local rape crisis center. And so I was doing rape crisis work in which I would show up to hospitals when survivors reported a sexual assault and they would go to get a SART exam, or what's also known as a rape kit, done. I would show up as an advocate and a support person and someone to provide them with resources during this really difficult, scary part of their lives.
Yeah.
So that happened. And then, in order to have two jobs, I had one job during the daytime. I was going to school. I also had a job doing retail, always hustling. And then a job at nighttime. In order to have a second job, had to be overnight. So I started moonlighting at the adult toy store. So, full circle. And that was my fun stuff. So I did like the really hard trauma work, doing the rape crisis work, and then going to work at the adult toy store was the fun part, right? I got to talk with couples and women about exploring their bodies and vibrators and dildos and all that fun stuff. And so then I was like, this is what I want to do, right? Drawing from my own experience in sexual violence and rediscovering pleasure post trauma. I was like, I want to work with survivors engaging in pleasurable, consensual sex again, because I saw such a gap between reduction of PTSD symptoms and engaging in pleasure. So that's how I knew, like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a sex therapist specifically to help survivors of sexual violence, but also working with the whole gamut of sex therapy.
I love it. What's such good and such important work, another example of women supporting women out of a need and something that you experienced in your life. I see that a lot on this show. when people are
Uh-huh.
the experiences that we go through in our lifetime and our human lives kind of lead us down the path that we're supposed to take, it seems like. And I
Mhm.
see that. So many of us grew up with mixed messages, curiosity, shame, silence, stigma around sexuality. How do you help women start unlearning those messages and come back to their authentic selves?
Mhm. I love this. One of the very first homework assignments I give clients when they come into my office is called the My Sex Essay. And it really just encourages you to go back through your sexual history and your upbringing and think about where some of these messages came from, right? Some of them, the first question in this My Sex Essay exploration is, what did you learn from your family, your culture, and your religious upbringing about sex? And people will start to go, oh my gosh, I didn't really think about how much, going to Catholic school, even though I'm not Catholic anymore, like going to Catholic school really ingrained this idea that sex was shameful. Or even I heard earlier today, the message was any type of sex that was outside of marriage and not for making babies was bad. And so really get diving into, where did these messages come from? What are some of the earlier sexual experiences or maybe things we've heard about our bodies, right? To cover up, or you shouldn't dress like this, or good girls don't want sex, right? That's something that bad girls do. So really diving into, where did these messages come from? What are some of the first messages you learned about sex, your body, masturbation, relationships? So that way you can see where they came from, and then also, do these messages still fit? Is this something that aligns with how you feel today?
Absolutely. That's a great place to start for sure. I love that. I'm like thinking about myself. Oh my gosh, there's so much to crack into.
Uh-huh.
I was lucky that my mom was kind of a feminist, but she's also a Christian. So there was a little bit of a balance in the house with it. There was the
Yeah.
biology part of sex that she was very open in our house. But then there were some aspects that were a little shoddy. I mean, through my teenage years, there were some years there where, there was a little bit of a little shaming for how I was feeling. But I think that as I grew into adulthood and especially motherhood, kind of allowed me to claim my sexuality and my femininity in a way that I don't think it was quite unclaimed before. And I
Uh-huh.
think, all my kids were born at home, and I feel like there was something about the experience of having my kids in such a raw and it's kind of sexual when you have your kids unmedicated. There's like it's a very transitional and transformative experience, and it really felt like a full circle experience for me. From like, from conception to birth actually felt very complete and very like, "Oh, I get it now." Like, I get
Uh-huh.
this process. So, you've been open about navigating early motherhood while maintaining intimacy and identity. How has becoming a mom changed your relationship with your body and your sexuality?
Very good questions. With relationship to my body, so I think it's also important background information that I do have two stepchildren, or whom I call my bonus children. One of them is my daughter, my stepdaughter. She's been in my life since she was 15. We lived together since she was 15. That was my first little taste of motherhood and being aware of how I treat my body with a young girl in the house, especially coming from a home in which my own mother didn't treat her own body very nicely. And I know how much that impacted me. And that was something that I wanted to be very sure I wasn't going to replicate or model to my stepdaughter, whom I care about very much. And so now, even as having my own biological children, I know it sounds so silly, but I've always been so insecure about my nose. And like I don't know why it's why do you know why? It's bothered me, right? We all have our little things. And so I was so insecure about my nose. And then having two little girls, I'm like, oh my goodness, they might have my nose. Right. And it's like, why would I? But I see it on their little faces and I'm like, oh my gosh, they have the cutest little noses. Like, how could I not like my own nose when I see how beautiful it looks on my daughter? So I think that's something that can be really healing about being a mother who has struggled with body image, and how we feel about ourselves, to see that in our children, whom we think are the most beautiful beings to ever exist because they're our kids, right? And that can be
Yeah.
incredibly healing. And then the sexuality piece, again, going back to my stepdaughter, it's been really fun and interesting to have open conversations with her because she was a teenager, right? And so I was the point person for having those conversations as she was coming into that stage of life, which I think is really important too, because not everybody has maybe these traumatic stories or messages about sex being bad. But a lot of us grow up in homes where it's just not talked about at all. So there's almost like an implied shame around anything sexual with what is not said. And so it's made me be very intentional about having open dialogue and being like I'm the safest, most educated person that my child can talk to about sex. So I would rather them come to me than anybody else. And so making sure that I have a home in which that is the culture of the home, that they can come to me about those things. That's been really important. And then the other like relationship, I guess, with sexuality is just how to prioritize that part of our relationships when we are in such a busy, sleep deprived stage of life.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Especially because 'cause you're all touched out, you know? They're holding babies all day and they're all over your breasts and you don't feel like you own your body anymore,
Eh,
it's
yeah.
definitely being owned by this little tiny person, so how do you overcome that?
There's a few things that I find to be helpful. One of which is to separate mother from like who I am as a sexual being. I think for a lot of us, those feel, even though we can absolutely be both, we are both as women, but I think for a lot of us, it's so hard to switch from mom mode to being like a sexual being again. So I think having transitions, like, when I'm walking around the house in my nursing bra and my sweatpants, like that's my like, my postpartum mom outfit that is certainly functional, but it doesn't make me feel sexy. So, like, how can I transition into an outfit in which I feel more aligned with that sexual identity of mine? Or even if I'm feeling touched out, is there a ritual that we can incorporate that's like, I'm going to take a shower and I'm going to rinse away the feeling of my baby clinging to my breast and switch into allowing my body to be a playground for myself and for my husband.
I love that. I love that so much. That's such good advice because I feel like we as moms, everybody's gone through this. This is not like something that, uncommon. It's something that we all kind of have to reinvent the wheel when we go through this. And I'd love for women to have these conversations with each other a little bit more. I'm so glad
Mhm.
we get to have this conversation today, that it will be
Mhm.
out there and evergreen that people can hear us talk about how to get through because it's hard. It is hard to make the transition, especially when they're little,
Mhm.
surviving, just surviving that transition into motherhood with your
Mhm.
sexuality intact.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, embracing the quickie is, I think, it's so
Yes.
helpful and important.
Yes.
Like, it's a small touch point to, like, continue to engage in intimacy and prioritize intimacy, and when I say intimacy, I don't just mean sex, right? But prioritize that emotional, physical connection with your partner that we need to maintain because at some point, our kids are going to eventually leave, and I'm gonna be stuck with just this man again. So how do I continue to create those touch points for intimacy? And man, if both kids are asleep at the same time, that could be a signal for game on if we're both up for it.
Heck yeah. I know. When we put our kids down to bed, our kids have a pretty solid sleeping schedule. And there's like a nice, we set aside there's a little window of time. I'd say it's about an hour a night between like 9 and 10. And we might be open for business. But it's negotiable. I think it's nice when you have those kinds of like defined boundaries so that your spouse knows that there is a place for it, in the day. There's a place in the day where there's time for it.
Right, right, and having that boundary like stated ahead of time that there is a time and there is a place for it because when I am like bent over in the bottle drawer, I don't need my husband grinding up against me. That's just going to frustrate me even more when I'm overworked, underslept, and touched out. But there are times when it's much more likely that there's going to be a green light or when it is negotiable.
Well, I love what you and I were talking about, how you guys have an actual designated space too, and that's another
Yes.
way to do it, right?
Yes. Yes, especially I mean, right now with my little one being 5 months, she sleeps in a bassinet in our bedroom, and so if you have a guest room or an extra space in your house, I love having that as, like, the designated spot to, like, shift out from this place where I'm folding laundry or where my baby is sleeping. Especially our bedroom, right, is what we normally define as, like, the space for sex, but if the baby's in there, that's not just a space for sex, that's a space where I wake up at 3 AM to feed her, right? That's the space where I'm folding laundry in the bed, and so are there other places in the home that can be more sexy, like on top of the kitchen counter or in the office when it feels like, kind of like a sneaking away to a hidden sexy spot.
I love that. That's such good advice. It really is. And I feel like we have to honor our husbands and make ourselves, creating those having that kind of communication with them where they know that there's a place, there's a time, that they're going to be able to get a piece of us cuz they miss us,
Mhm.
Our
Right.
babies
Honoring our
take a lot of
husbands
our
and
time.
honoring ourselves.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Heck yeah, that's right. Showing up for us too and our sexuality and our pleasure, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So there's a common story that once women have kids, their desire disappears. What's actually going on biologically and emotionally in that season?
Oh, goodness. Well, if you've been through motherhood, you know that it is certainly an emotional roller coaster. So, emotionally, it takes quite a long time for you to regulate, and biologically, hormonally, you're going through all these huge hormonal shifts that allow you to create a baby, to feed a baby. And so, physically, one thing that I think is important for folks to know that I don't think gets talked about a lot is the impact of the hormonal shifts on your actual sexual organs. So, once you have a baby, your body is being pumped with prolactin so that way you can produce milk, right? You need then produce milk to feed the baby. And in order to have prolactin, there's a suppression of estrogen. And when estrogen is suppressed, you can cause vaginal dryness. And it almost replicates what happens when you go into menopause, right? When there's a reduction in estrogen production. So knowing that I think is important so we can prepare for discomfort. Like there can be physical discomfort when you're having dried tissue down there.
Yeah.
So being prepared for that and knowing what questions to ask and how you can talk to your doctor about it, right? Just like some topical estrogen can make all the difference, or some lubricant can make all the difference so that it's actually comfortable. So you'll want to engage in sex because most of us don't want to engage in sex if it's going to be painful.
True. Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. So for the moms who are listening who are feeling disconnected from their sexual selves, where's a safe and compassionate place for them to start?
I think a really good place to start is just honoring pleasure, whatever that looks like, they're inside the bedroom or outside the bedroom. I think because that transition into motherhood, you're so much giving yourself to other people, whether it's your kids, whether it's your spouse, and not really honoring any pleasure for yourself. So, making that time and that space to care for yourself, even if it's just taking a bath or a shower on your own or going to the bathroom on your own when you have small children, can be like a feat in itself. What can you do that feels pleasurable? And I don't just mean like getting it out of the house to go grocery shopping on your own. I think sometimes even our spouses, they don't get it. They're like, I just let you go to the store on your own. I'm like, no, like that's not, going to Trader Joe's isn't exactly my choice for a pleasurable activity. I would like, a massage or to get a pedicure or to just take a bath by myself. Are there other ways that we can engage in pleasure? So I think that's a good touch point, as well as intimacy beyond sexual intimacy, right? Talking with your partner, connecting on an emotional level, having a date night, even if it's inside the house after the kids are in bed, for you to actually connect with each other and not just talk about, okay, what do we do now? Who needs a diaper change? What kid needs to get signed up for swim lessons? Things besides the logistics, actual communicating and intimacy about what makes you and your husband feel close, or partner.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, good advice. Good advice, Holly. I love that. So how can partners show up in a way that supports connection without pressure or expectation, especially during those early years with the little ones?
I think prioritizing time for connection, and I specifically use the phrase of connection. I think scheduling sex specifically can be helpful for some people, right? I think a lot of times it gets a bad rep as being unsexy, but also it's a way to show that it's a priority of yours. Kind of like if you buy tickets to a concert in advance, it doesn't make the concert any less exciting. However, it can also cause pressure. It's like, oh my gosh, Saturday night's coming up. This is the night that we have sex, and that can add too much pressure. So I think a good way to turn the pressure down is just focus on having connection time. Again, is that sitting on the couch watching one of your favorite movies and sipping hot chocolate together? Is it cuddling in bed? Is it taking a shower together, massaging each other, right? Different ways to engage in connection without the expectation of sex.
I love that. I love that. My husband and I, it's one of the things we do. We hop on the couch, usually around 9 when when it quiets down. We'll hop on the couch and he always hands me his feet. And that's sort of like I rub his feet and it's just sort of one way that makes him know like we're still connected. I've
Mhm,
got you. It's okay. And
mhm.
sometimes I'll hand him my feet and make him be reciprocal, but most of the time it's just me rubbing his feet most of the time. That's okay.
Oh, I love it. I Yeah, for me, it's like the one of, like, the most intimate connecting things that my partner does is when he washes my back with the loofah in the shower. It just, like, is so nice to have, like, somebody else wash your back, and I can, like, relax and just enjoy being in the shower together.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that. We used to shower a lot more together, honestly, when we only had 3 kids in the house.
Only 3.
Now that there are 5 kids in the house, like, we rarely, it's busy. It really is. It really
Mhm.
does take a lot of management just to figure out how to meet everybody's needs kind of. And, meeting my needs is one of the things we gotta meet along the way too. Definitely, that is a priority for me now in a bigger way than it ever has been in my life before. I think it's because I have so many other people to take care of. I know if I don't take care of myself, I'm not gonna be able to take care of anyone else.
Right. Right,
Yeah.
how are you gonna do it if you're so empty and depleted? How are you gonna be able to show up for all these people that you care about?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've said before that pleasure is a form of self-care. I love that. What does that really mean in practice for women who are balancing their careers and families and everything else?
Oh, goodness. It looks like time management. It looks like prioritization, getting clear on what is important to you and making it happen, just like we manage our businesses and other parts of our lives. Like, you have to get really good at making space for what is a priority. And so, for example, for myself, my self care, I have to go to the gym in the morning and I have to make it happen. And that looks like doing some juggling of the calendar, like, I have to be up at 4 o'clock and home by 6 because my husband's gotta leave and the babies are gonna wake up, right? But we as moms juggle this stuff all the time, so I think it just really you have to get good at prioritizing and time managing those things that are important for your self-care and for your pleasure.
Totally. I love that. What are some of the biggest blocks that you see around desire, and how can women begin to shift those patterns?
The biggest block that I see around desire is really a lack of education understanding sexual desire. So most people have this idea that sexual desire is supposed to be like they see in the movies. You have this like instant feeling of horniness and you just want to have sex, which is great. And some people feel that way, but more often than not, especially for women, we align with what's called responsive desire. So there's two different desire types. There's spontaneous desire, that movie out of nowhere horniness, and then there's what we call responsive desire, where you feel desire in response to a stimulus, and that can be a relationship stimulus, that can be a visual stimulus, or it can be an actual physical stimulus, like you might actually have to engage in self pleasure before you feel like engaging in sex or some type of, together pleasure before engaging in actual intercourse. I think a
Right.
lot of times,
Foreplay. We've
especially
forgotten about foreplay.
right, right.
We had so
And
much foreplay in high school.
right, right. And I think a lot of women they wait, a lot of people who experience responsive desire, and it tends to be a lot of women who experience responsive desire, but it could be across the gender spectrum. They're waiting to feel the spark as opposed to making the spark happen and then desire follows. So I think of it as like some people heat up like microwaves, those are the spontaneous people, and some people heat up like ovens. And a lot of times we need to preheat our own oven.
Yeah, I love that. I know. My husband's like, as I'm getting older, he's like, "Would you mind preheating your oven for me?" He's like, "That'd be great if you could just preheat." Because 'cause I'm not a microwave anymore. I am definitely an oven now, and I don't know, I
Mhm.
probably need some, like, estrogen cream or something. Because I'm pushing 47 now, so, yeah.
Yeah, or tuning into, like, one tip that I learned from a colleague of mine. She's like, "Oh, yeah, I listen to audio erotica on my way
Ooh.
home, on my drive home." So it kinda primes your mind, before you get there, and it's just like, a little fun tip to preheat the oven.
Oh, I love that idea. I'm just so busy, I can't you get so busy and you get lost in it, and it's like,
Mhm.
that is a great tip. I will definitely do that. He's gonna love that. 'Cause there's not a lot of time, you know what I mean? There's not a lot of time to
Right.
get your oven heated up when you have 5 kids in your house. Even if you have 2, you don't have time to you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right, but if you're on the road anyway and you're stuck in a
Yeah.
car, if you have time to listen to a podcast or an audiobook, you might as well
Yeah.
put on some literotica.
I love it. Do you have any good recommendations?
Yeah, I do actually. So Dipsea, Dipsea is an app that you can download that has audio erotica and you can tailor it to what piques your interest. So if you have specific styles like student teacher, power dynamics, or I think you can even choose accents you like. So if you like a Scottish accent or an Australian accent, you can choose that as well. Yeah, so
Awesome.
I would check out that one.
I will be checking that out. I'm gonna be sending that out to my girlfriends too, because I have a few girlfriends that are gonna be, like, so into it.
Yes, love it.
I love that. How can we start an honest conversation about sex with our partners or even just with ourselves about without it feeling awkward or loaded?
Mhm.
Oof.
A couple of thoughts, one of which is kind of the sandwich feedback, like you might give somebody in the workplace of sandwiching a positive between the improvements or thing that you'd like to work on with another positive, right? So you might say, I really love when we have this time together and you really preheat my oven, right? Or we have massaging together before this happens. I wish we had more of that, right? It's really from a place of positive as opposed to like, you never do foreplay anymore, right? You never do this for me. You never turn me on in this way. So I think the two pieces are speaking from the I perspective, like, I really enjoy this, or I really would like to try this, and then sandwiching the constructive feedback in between positives of, I love when you touch me like this, but you're kind of a little too far to the left. Instead, can you kind of shift shift your hand over this way and then oop just like that. This is amazing, right? Sandwiching the constructive feedback in the positive and again focusing on I would like or I'd love to try this or I really enjoy this as opposed to why can't you do this? You never do this.
Oh, that's such good advice because it really is. Sex is such a hard thing. Kind of, it is. Even though I've been married like 21 years of my life, sex is still a hard thing to talk about. I don't know why.
Mhm.
It is because you don't want to start a fight. You don't want to
Right.
cause any awkwardness. So I love that starting with the I and coming from a place of positivity on all of those things.
Right. It's really emotional, and a lot of times we don't want to hurt our partner's feelings. But I think it's also important that most of the time our partners want us to feel good. Our partners want us to enjoy sex more. So I think keeping that in mind as well of you're not trying to criticize them, you're not trying to say that they're doing anything wrong. There's just ways that we can do things even better, make it even hotter, make it even spicier.
I love that. Yes. As women evolve through motherhood, leadership, and self growth, how does our sexuality evolve with us?
I mean, just like everything else in your life, things are going to evolve. And I think this is one of the problems I see in the office as well, is a lot of times couples will come to therapy saying, I want sex to be like back when we first started dating. And it's just unrealistic, right? For a number of reasons. You think back to when you're in your early 20s. For one, when you first meet somebody, you're having all these hormones racing through your body that happen when you meet someone new for the first time. So there's novelty, there's excitement, there's all these hormones that make that different than knowing someone for a longer period of time. For two, yeah, you're in your 19s and you're 19, 20 years old. You don't have the same sort of responsibilities and pressures that you have as a mom with a business and a mortgage. So things certainly aren't going to be the same. And then top that off with, hormonal shifts, big life changes like grief and loss and moving. Everything is going to shift. And so I think just having an awareness and an understanding that our sex lives are going to shift and grow with us is first and foremost. Like, you have to have that understanding that things are going to change, and that is completely normal. And then from there, I think it's important just to be talking openly about it, and how can you two navigate still being close and intimate amidst those big life changes or amidst the stress. How do you manage your stress? Stress is one of the biggest, I don't know what words I'm allowed to say, C blocks or biggest
Go ahead and say
desire
it,
killer.
girl.
Okay. I don't know if you got
Say it.
censored. I think people know what I'm saying, right? It certainly put a damper on desire. So how do you manage stress so that way you can still tap into that desire? Because when you're stressed out, you're not able to access desire because your body is too focused on survival.
Oh, yeah. What's one of your good tips for managing stress as it pertains to, our sexuality?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same whether we're talking about sexuality or general mental health. What things are shown to reduce stress are exercise, meditation, mindfulness, yoga, connection with other people, listening to things that make you laugh or watching things that make you laugh. All the same things that are going to be helpful for your general mental health certainly fall in line with what's helpful in terms of sex and sexuality. And the other thing that I think is really important is with stress and stress response, we all are going to experience stressors, and stress, the body's physiological reaction, is a natural response to stressors. And the problem is, we in this day and age face stressors every single day. We're not like running from wild animals anymore. Instead, we have deadlines, we have our kids' bake sale, we have something coming up at work, we have a sink full of dirty dishes, right? I call like dishes, diapers, and deadlines. There's so much happening that because we face stressors every day, we have to do things that regulate our stress every day. So go for a walk, meditate, do some yoga, connect with your friends. All of those things are going to help to regulate your stress response so that way you can get out of survival mode and better access pleasure.
Heck yeah. Such good advice. Such good advice. And all of those things. I would take any of those activities in my day. Any of those would be great. Yesterday I
Mhm.
got to connect with my girlfriends. Today I got to go to yoga. So one a day. Pick activity a day that's going to lower your stress level, because it's also good for your DNA. It's good for your mitochondria, good for your longevity. They say chronic stress is actually the thing that diminishes your lifespan.
Mhm.
And so if we can just, manage our stress a little bit better, we can have a little more fun, right?
Mhm.
If you could give every woman listening a permission slip around her sexuality, what would it say?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say you have permission to go after the sex that you want. I think so many of us feel ashamed or feel like we have to engage in sex in a way that is for the other person's pleasure and specifically for men's pleasure. But it is so important to figure out what you really like and what you really want. And you have the absolute right and permission. Pleasure is a birthright. So you have that permission to access pleasure in a way that feels authentic to you.
I love that. Yeah, that's fantastic. Holly, thank you so much for this conversation. I love how you remind us that sexuality isn't something separate from who we are. It's a part of our creativity, our confidence, and our connection to life itself. For everyone listening, you can find Dr. Hollywood at thehollywoodsexologist.com, on Instagram at Dr. Hollywood PhD, and on YouTube at The Hollywood Sexologist. I'll link it all in the show notes. And remember, managing your life means managing your energy, your pleasure, and your voice. This is The Manager, and I'm Aimee Rickabus. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and stay fully alive. Thanks, Holly. I love it. Any cool like sex toys that we should know about? Is there anything new out there that's just like rocking the world?
I'm a classic magic wand girly. I feel like you
What's a
can't
magic
get
wand?
do I have one in here? I have to have one somewhere. I know I have a crochet one somewhere. Oh, by the way, it looks like this. Someone made me this. It looks like this.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like
Heck
your
yeah.
grandma's vibrator. It
Yeah,
is
old school,
the
like my mother's vibrator.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Like, I'm a classic there's, like, all sorts of new gadgets out there. One thing that's really cool, it's not that new, it's probably at least 5 years old, it's called a Lioness, and it uses
What?
biofeedback to track your orgasm patterns and graph
What?
your orgasms, so as a sex nerd, if you wanted to get some data on orgasms, and it'd be cool to, like, see people see differences when they're on, like, certain medications or when they're engaging in sex at different times of day or different parts of their cycle. You can kind of get data, which I think is really interesting
That is
for our own
so
cycle.
cool. The lioness?
Yes, like a
Okay.
lady lion. Yep.
The lady lion. Okay, those the top that's the is there anything else I should know? What's new? I've been
um,
out of the scene, married forever, so I'm a little like, we're a little antiquated here with our
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things. I'm a big fan of a brand called Plus One, especially for people who are newer to sex toys because they're really great quality body safe silicone and they're also really affordable and rechargeable and you can buy them at like Target.
Whoa.
So that brand is really great and they have all different styles like the suction. If you haven't tried a suction style vibrator, I think those are good ones. Those aren't super new, but
I've
newer in
never
terms
seen
of
such a
style.
thing, so, yeah, that is so
Yeah, it's like
cool.
sucks right on that spot.
Oh, I'm thinking you, like, stick it to the wall. I've got this all wrong.
I
I'm
mean, we make
imagining this the
those
wrong way.
too, but those we got those too.
I love this. Yeah, I just feel like tuning into our sexuality, not forgetting to live our lives in a wholly human way. Like we are humans and humans are sexual animals and it's a big part of what really makes us happy. Like down deep inside, I think that sexuality is a part of humanity that, if we're tending to it in the right way, it should make humans happy, not sad.
Mhm.
And I'd love to see more of that in the world. And I'm happy that you're doing the work that makes that happen, Holly.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.